So I think what's great about Shaping Better Places is that it's a deliverable, it's real, it's a deliverable framework. And we hear a lot of talk about how things need to change, how things need to be different for an uncertain future. The culmination of all of our collective works has come together, and we've given it a name, Shaping Better Places, and it's deliverable, and we are delivering it, and it is making a difference. And you feel good about working with a thing like this, because you know it will work and it will deliver. When we started to hear about ESG, environmental social governance, and realised that the ESG movement that has sort of been growing over the last couple of years or so, kind of really speaks of the work that we do. So previously, companies would have talked about corporate responsibility and sustainable development goals, or sustainability in general. Environmental and social governance are the kind of three pillars that are holding up a new way of running your business. But often those things were siloed. The corporate responsibility and the sustainability agenda were different departments within an organisation. The way that we'd been working for years was to sort of bring the social and the ecological and therefore the economic together into one thing, and say we work here, we work in the middle of these places that are normally divided. What we found when we then spoke to people who come from the corporate world, this was being handed down to them from executive positions, like we must conform or we must work with ESG, and of course they had no real understanding of how that might be done, because up to that point it had been a very siloed approach. So we were ready for that, because we literally had an ESG ready delivery framework with Shaping Better Places. We thought this through, as I say, for years, and so it wasn't new to us. That side of it wasn't a revelation. The revelation was that, okay, now there's something we can, a hook that we can hang our particular hat on, and that is when the doors began to open in the corporate world, because they were able to hear what we were saying. It was no longer closed doors to us, so we were literally banging on an open door. So let's just say we've been approached by a company, and they are looking to improve their sustainable development goals, and that can usually, what that usually means for a company is, they have been busy insulating their buildings, being careful about resources and recycling, and that kind of stuff, which is all very important. But what they will very rarely have looked at are issues relating specifically to climate change, and even more importantly to the global problem of biodiversity loss. And so that's where we come in. We come in at biodiversity loss, and we introduce that to them as a sustainability measure that they can be involved with. We use that to create a new agenda for that particular business, and it usually involves an asset that they have. That could be a shopping centre or a business park or whatever it is, and we will look at ways at introducing what's called net gain, biological or ecological uplift in a place that already exists or is proposed to exist in the future. In other words, a development. Once you've sort of started to embark on the journey of bringing wildlife to a place, it's then very easy to engage with people. So, we would call them stakeholders. It's a pretty bland way of looking at it, but this is the community of people who live or work in and around a place that we're focusing attention on. We're able to tell stories to the community and get them engaged, give them the opportunity to learn about what's going on and feel good about what's going on. And the feeling good part is really, really important, because as we develop a space for biodiversity and folks have access to that space, what we know is that this will improve their lives, their productivity, their health and well-being, their mental health as well as their physical health. Let's say that we've created just a very simple wildlife garden in a business park, for instance. The wildlife doesn't just stay within the boundary of the business park. It launches itself outwards, by foot, on the wing, whatever, seed dispersal, pollen dispersal. And so it necessarily kind of infects the spaces and places around it in a really good way. So there's a map there. There's a you could look at that as a web, a map of activity that is spreading out from this hotspot, this point of ecological density. It's a spike of ecological density, and it fans out beyond the boundary of the place that we're really focusing on. Now so that's an ecological network right there. And now you can place a social network over the top of that. And it's quite interesting, I think, that the social network mirrors the ecological network. We can reach out in similar directions. We can connect with communities outside of the boundary of the initial hub that we started to work in. And so now we're in the realms of good governance, because this company who has taken this initiative to do this thing for wildlife, for ecology, is now connecting with the immediate community within the asset itself. So perhaps they might be people who rent in this place. They're now connected to this place because they have been privy to what's going on and probably taken part in what's going on in the creation of this wildlife garden, if that's what it is. And then just over the boundary there is another community usually, and they're beginning to get engaged in the project too. By creating a wildlife garden, we started with environmental ecology specifically. We were able to connect socially to the immediate stakeholders and then the stakeholders outside the boundary, and this is the best kind of governance that any company can do.